How we doing, everyone? Sorry for the delay. This is one of those mornings where I wanted to get to this and things just kept popping up. So, finally here. Had to take care of some errands, and it's just one thing after another. We got delay going on. Crypto golfer, how are you? We'll get started in a minute. My cat says hi. She's right by the computer, ready to take a look at crypto and Bitcoin charts with all of us today. All right, let's get started. So, I wanted to just kind of do one of my classic run throughs on a number of various charts. We'll just go through all this together and take a look at the macro market charts one by one and see through the different indicators. Are we seeing anything different? We've seen bearishness for a while. Today, there's news about the tariffs, whether or not that's going to be bullish or bearish enough to get us going in any sort of meaningful direction. We'll see. Some people believe that the tariffs being struck down will be macro bullish. But yeah, we'll get into all that. We'll take a look at all the charts together. Let's start off with fear and greed as we usually do. Still an extreme fear. Still an extreme fear. And I've been of the base case. I've shown you guys the charts, and I'll show the charts again, or the indicators again, of why I believe Bitcoin can go even lower into the 50K range, maybe 40K, but my best guess, most probable base case based off the data and the indicators, I believe that we could see 50K this year, somewhere in the 50Ks. Whether it gets in the 40s, we'll see. But I'll show you why that is as we go through a number of these charts and indicators. But we are in fear in a couple of both charts. And if you're watching in replay, if you're new to my channel, one thing I want to make clear is that something I talk about that's a little different than a lot of the crypto people out there is I talk about, crypto golfer first. He says he's waiting for the Trump tweet storm after the markets close and Bitcoin is the only thing tradable. Volatility incoming. Yeah, I agree with you. It's quite the times we're living in when one tweet can just alter markets by so goddamn much. Drives me crazy, but that's neither here nor there. Back to what I had to say. We'll get into maybe a little bit of that later. But my channel compared to other channels, I don't just talk about the 4-year cycle. The 4-year cycle, many crypto people just know that as, the simple phenomena that every 4 years, Bitcoin has a top, and every 4 years, Bitcoin has a bottom. So after the genesis of Bitcoin, back here, you see these 4-year cycle tops, or these local tops are 4 years apart. All right, fine, great. And even these bottoms are give or take around 4 years apart. All right, cool, great. One of the things I talk about that's a little different on this channel that I think is going to be very important to be ready for is the money flow cycle. The money flow cycle is not the 4-year cycle. It used to be, but it no longer lines up. And if you're wondering, what the heck is the money flow cycle, you could take a screenshot of this and take a look right there. But there's a few factors: quantitative easing, lower rates, money printing, whatever you want to take a look at. Any inflationary monetary policy that comes to the market eventually pumps things that are more speculative, especially speculative tech. People love, during risk on times, things like crypto can really run up. Now, let me be clear. Outside of Bitcoin and a very small handful of altcoins, these are as speculative of tech assets as they come. So do your own research. Make sure that whatever you are buying in, I'd encourage patience. And I'll show you indicators and ways I look at the charts to try to get good deals. But, taking a look at the 4-year cycle and the money flow cycle, in 2017, when I got into crypto in the summer here, I know it says 2025. This was the year 2017. I got in somewhere around here. And it was nice and neat. We had the 4-year cycle top, and the money flow cycle came to a conclusion right after. The cycle after, however, this was the tops in 2021. We had a 4-year cycle top, but our money flow cycle topped right here. Again, I'll show you in the charts later why that is. Now, to throw an even bigger wrench into things, this wasn't the true cycle top. If we are defining a cycle top, it is technically the top between the halvings. And the top between the halvings was actually March of 2024. That was the true top. So this cycle comes along, we get that local 4-year cycle top, but we did not get a money flow cycle top. So I am of the base case that I believe we could have something like I think that was 2019 mid-cycle top that could line up with the money flow cycle, or we can get a pump into the halving that lines up with the money flow cycle. So I think all that quantitative easing, extra money printing, inflationary monetary policy that moved the money flow cycle earlier last cycle, I think that's going to take longer for some of these things to have effects, and it'll probably be center right translated is my best guess. So again, people who are out there saying, this crypto cycle's over, technically, no. I think there are things in the charts to show that, this time is different in some ways, and we have to pay attention to why that is. Now, as far as Bitcoin right now, you guys saw earlier that it is at the 200-week moving average. All right, and on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map chart, you can see 63K, roughly speaking. There's some longs stacked up, and there's a lot of shorts right here at 73K. On the way up and down, Bitcoin loves to tag these longs and shorts wherever they're all stacked up. So I would not be surprised to see Bitcoin maybe jump the 73K before getting lower to maybe, some of those prices in the mid 50s that I talked about. Talked about this in the stock video, and for any of you who are subscribed, I'm looking at doing some things different moving forward. This is a very crypto heavy channel. I want to do a little bit more with stocks, but I'm seeing, kind of what the appetite is out there as far as things to talk about. I want this to be, or I like this channel being a community driven channel where I'm not necessarily the expert. I show you charts that I look at. I'm a retail guy just like you. I have a specialty in the field of psychology, so I try to apply that to the markets and use, maybe a contrarian sort of outlook, reverse psychology in ways to get in during some times where there's extreme fear and get in on some good assets, whether stocks or crypto. So that's something I can offer to you guys. But one of the reasons I made this channel, well, there's a couple reasons. The two main reasons are, one, there are too many people out there that just say ridiculous predictions as far as where crypto's going to go, or it's not really based on much. Not all my predictions have come true. All of you subscribers, you might remember me talking about 150 to 200K. And I still believe that is very possible by the time this cycle's done. But that was not our 4-year cycle top 150 to 200K. I still am of the belief that Bitcoin will get there. But I try to make my predictions grounded in reality. I'm not going to say 500K Bitcoin, a million Bitcoin, any of these. I don't try to say any outlandish predictions to shill you anything. I try to be as data driven as possible. So that's one reason I made this channel, is just let's bring some grounded, conservative, realistic expectations to the crypto space, because it's filled with shills out there. And the other reason I made this channel is, there's a lot of complex things in the stock and crypto market, and I try to learn about it with all of you and be able to understand and explain these things like I'm talking to the average person. If any of you have seen the movie Margin Call, great movie, like The Big Short, both GFC movies, the CEO says, explain this to me as if you would a small child or a golden retriever. And so I want to be able to understand these topics with you. And one of the things moving forward that I want to do, in addition to my stock videos, is maybe split those up and start talking about sectors, because one of the things I don't talk about with all you guys is how there are sector rotations. There are sectors that run at different times, and I think that can give us an edge in the market. So I do want to get more into the sectors because that tells us a lot about what the markets are doing. Anyway, stay tuned for that. If you have any input suggestions, you can always email me, marketpsychology101@gmail.com. Getting back to some analysis. One of these things, let me get back to this chart here in a second. I'm going to turn off the moving averages. I was just playing around with some of those comparisons, by the way, and I saw this and I cannot ignore this. I want to take a look at this with you guys. When Bitcoin has had these local tops, look at what the S&P 500 has done once Bitcoin has started tapering off. You will see this high correlation of when Bitcoin is dropping off, the S&P usually has a corrective phase right after as well. So you see Bitcoin running up, starts to come down, the S&P continued to come up, and then they went down together. The S&P topped right here, but Bitcoin fell twice before the S&P topped out. Here, 50% drop. Here, I don't know how much, well, we can measure that. How much did Bitcoin drop off by the time that the S&P finished? So it already dropped off 30%. And what we have right now, we definitely have a divergence going on. Bitcoin is way down here. Okay, this is one of the most speculative tech assets out there, but the S&P hasn't rolled over yet. I don't know how much it's going to roll over, whether 10%, 20%, 30%. But if this is any indication, as we've had before, when Bitcoin has rolled over, the S&P doesn't fall or is soon to fall not too much later. And so a couple important charts for us to look at here. We'll take a look at the classic midterm year charts in this chart. This one, I highly recommend just screenshotting this, whether in your brain, on your phone, on your computer. I think it's important for us to have this perspective of how rare some of these opportunities are. Recently in the S&P, with the tariff scare, how much did we drop? Like 22%. And I just want to put that in perspective. When the S&P 500 has these giant drops, this was 21, 22%, something like that. And then before here, this was the top that coincided with inflation spiking. That was almost 30%. And, whether it's going to hit one of these round numbers or not, it doesn't really matter. But this gives us a range of when we are seeing a correction of this amount, just how rare that is. Right now, we see Microsoft at its 200-week moving average. Talked about that in the stock video. That is a rare place for Microsoft to be. Now, in the dot-com bubble, it still went a bit lower. We had to go to the monthly moving averages to see that. But if we're seeing the S&P correct sometime this midterm year, whether here or greater, just remember how rare of an opportunity we are going to get as far as stocks and crypto. My views will go down. That is okay. I will still do videos, and it'll be important for us to remember those are the opportunities to get in at the dips. And I'll show you indicators that I look at to try to keep things simple. And I want to keep things simple for you guys, as I said before. Now, as the year started off, remember when I said first 5 trading days is a high probability of the rest of the year being positive. And also we have these 5 data points to show that during a president's second midterm year, it tends to overall be pretty positive. Now, what you also see down here, this is our classic midterm year. It kind of seems like we're following somewhat similar of a chart as we have right here. We've had sort of a corrective phase. Are we going to get kind of a relief pump with some of this tariff news and then truly fall off? I saw an almanac or a piece of almanac data that was out there that says, if you buy the S&P 500 on the day of the elections, that you have like 100% success rate of making profits over the course of the next year. And that after the elections, it tends to be pretty positive. So, the data as far as this year, there's a lot of things to say, hey, we're going to be bullish. But as you guys know, we are in an AI bubble. I'm of the mindset that I don't believe the bubble's popping now. I could be wrong. That's always possible. Whether that bubble gets some of these corrections, like the dot-com bubble had a couple big corrections on the way up. Are we going to get another decent correction before going up for another push? I don't know, but I'm of the opinion that this bubble will continue and that we haven't reached the very top yet. Again, I might be wrong on that, but that's my base case. There was a lot of macro almanac data to support that we are not completely bearish or falling off a cliff. Again, we will see as far as that data goes moving forward. Excuse me. One of the things that I wanted to show you guys, Bitcoin monthly return.com, they updated their chart. As you can see, we take a look at this multiple times a week. Not sure I totally love the update, but I'll show you some things I do like on it. And what we see here is so far, February, I like how this is showing in real time now. Before, it didn't update it until the month finished. So I like that that's a change that they made. But, it's not as opaque as I'd like it to be. I did like the other version more. But we are in a midterm year. And about every 4 years, you guys can see this, we have those local bottoms. So 4 years later, 4 years later, 4 years later, are we going to get another, 60 or 50%? We're already, Bitcoin from its top is already something like 50% down. But where is that bottom going to be? Is it going to be by the time we hit, later in the year, Q4? Is it going to be sooner than that? In the summer, we'll see. One of the updates that I like that they did, by the way, on their website here, where is it? Or at least I may have to hit. Here we go. Here we go. This is what I was looking at. They have Bitcoin halving cycles month 1 through 48. And I thought this was interesting. So, it's an easy trap for us to fall into sometimes is using data in a correlative way and making comparisons, back testing the data, moving it forward. I fall into this trap all the time. Do know that's not a foolproof plan, but we try to do that sometimes to reduce a certain level of risk. And one thing that's interesting to me is like, okay, this tends to be a pretty reddish time. Where might we be around here? All right. So March, April, is April going to be positive and then followed by a few more negative months? And then by the time, so this would be April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, it kind of by October or November, that would probably be the most likely case of a bottom for sure being in. Could it come in earlier because it's been so negative? Recently it could. We can just take a look at last month. At the same time as well. And we're kind of split on. So maybe a couple of months will be after and we'll still see your typical. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Again, I'm not trying to be too predictive with it. Going over to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, when they did the updates, they didn't, in my opinion, fix the phenomena with the top as well as I would like for the Bitcoin rainbow chart. The bottoms are good, but this is a log regression chart. The log scale, the x-axis shows us time, the y-axis shows us factors of 10. And this catches the bottoms pretty good, but I think the top should flatten out more. And, with that being said, I'm looking at kind of the green to yellow zone, maybe later in the cycle. Again, looking at that high 100K area, I believe the cycle will be more right translated. Again, we will see about that, but that's my base case. But as far as bottoms go, because that's what we're getting to, you see that this, what are we going to call this? Teal, I guess that's more teal, grayish blue, and then very dark blue. We are in those discount zones. And you can see the lows of the current area goes down to the mid 50s and the dark blue goes down to the 40s. So just keep that in mind. Also, before we get into all the chart stuff, if you're new to this channel, I do talk about Bitcoin mining stocks, altcoins on request, and I talk about other stocks during my stock videos as well. Again, I'm looking to update my stock videos for you guys and kind of, I think during the bear market times are good times to make changes and to kind of reassess, what data are we looking at? What chart to really spend more time and energy on, and which ones maybe haven't been as helpful? So that's what I'm looking to do moving forward. As far as Bitcoin right now, I want to do a couple things here. One, let's just fib this up. Our Fibonacci retracement. This is just low to high, and you can see low to high. Bitcoin, it had, or recently, it got stuck around that 236 pullback. Let's put on our moving averages. The 236 pullback was right here, kept falling further, and now it's at the 200 moving average. And the 382 area is at around the mid 50Ks. All right, great. So mid 50Ks. Taking a look at our moving averages overall again. Something else to remember, Bitcoin with these bottoms, if you want to keep this as simple as possible, we had a couple bottoms in a row at the 50-month moving average. Last cycle, it hit the 100-month. And right now, Bitcoin, it did tag that 50-month moving average. The 100-month is down here at 46K. So again, might we see in the 40Ks? Maybe. I think somewhere in the 50s, it's still my most probable case if we get lower. All right, we'll address that when we get there. But I even think right now is an area that I wouldn't necessarily miss. If you're a Bitcoin maxi, anytime we've been at these bottoms have really been great times to buy. Do we have confirmation of a bottom? No. And I'll show you again in the indicators moving forward. But as soon as we do, you can take a look at this. Maybe the next green candle, you can see when Bitcoin has hit the 50 or lower, right here, the next green candle on the Heikinashi has been the one to hit. So again, candles are up here. I use Heikinashi because it shows us the trend. So, just remember, Heikinashi is down here. Trend is your friend, all that. Let's take that off. A couple other indicators I am watching every week. Bitcoin Hunter. This shows our value at 54K. Remember that the mid 50K area. There's a couple other places to show, even on the rainbow chart, the lower gray area lines up with that as well. And that is a rare area. Could it get lower? Again, it might. But I do like 54K as an area overall. As far as production costs, you can see here that Bitcoin can definitely, in its bottoms, get into that production cost area. Even last cycle, it got a little underneath it. Now, I will say there are a number of indicators, and maybe I'll show some of those today, that suggested this was the bottom. And then we had a black swan event with FTX at the bottom. And so that caused us to go another 9-10% down. So is 54K at the bottom, is the lower area of the production cost, around 45K at the bottom. Are we going to get a black swan at the bottom? Those are things I don't know. But these are areas I like no matter what. When Bitcoin has fallen over 60%, you're doing pretty good at catching near those local bottoms for yourself. We also talked about, we can show a few other indicators. Bollinger Bands, the lower area of the Bollinger Band is right there at 54K, lines up with Bitcoin Hunter, even the stochastic RSI. This is one that I like, again, a lot. When Bitcoin is bottomed out on the stochastic and it starts to flip up towards a shaded area, that has been pretty good at calling those bottoms. So again, after it bottoms out, and once it is bottomed for a while and starting to come up, again, line it up with one of those green candles, or if it looks like it's forming a base, this is done pretty good. Again, completely bottomed out. Once it starts coming back up, you are close to the bottom. So we are completely bottomed out. Anything, by comparison to prior cycles, we might be down here a few months. And by the time it starts coming up, that could be very close to where the bottom is. So just keep that in mind as far as, being patient. What I'm doing right now, not telling you what to do, but what I'm doing, I'm stacking cash as far as for crypto is concerned. There's some stock plays out there that I like. I'm not going to, try to suggest what you guys buy or don't buy. But for my crypto investments, I am waiting for confirmation. Do we have confirmation yet? No. But if you are a long-term believer, let's say in Bitcoin, you might be like, you know what? We're at the 200-week moving average. Maybe I will take a little bit of a stab at this in DCA, just so I don't miss this value. And that's totally up to you. And as far as the 200-week moving average, I like when we have wicks above those moving averages, at least when it's as support. And right now the candle body is eating through it a little bit. Again, we might see this go up a little, but overall, Bitcoin looking very weak. After the last flush down, you can see it tested that 20-day moving average, even got up to the 100-day. The 100-day is all the way up here, so could we see this chop around and then eat through these moving averages, maybe get up somewhere like the low 80Ks before doing the same again, over the course of a month or two? Maybe. But those are just some things I am looking for as far as Bitcoin's concerned. So let's see. Anything else I want to do chart-wise with Bitcoin? Let's go to the weekly. Let me check comments here. See, do we have any? Looking at my phone right now. Looking to see if we have any extra comments in the chat. All right. Doesn't look like it. Cool. So let me doing one thing on my phone right now. And we'll resume talking about crypto here in just a second. All right, there we go. Comments are up on my phone. Looks like I caught everything. If you have any comments, questions, by the way, please put those below. As far as crypto golfer, extra comment, thank you. And you tell me where Iron and Cypher are good buy zones. Let's get into that .dev. By the way, thank you for being here. Before we get into dominance, let's get into good buy zones for Iron and TeraWolf. Now, or no, you said Iron and Cypher. All right, looks like he said the same comment twice. Cool. Now, something to consider when I take a look at mining stocks. In the past, mining stocks have been highly correlated with Bitcoin. And this cycle, that's been a little bit different because the mining stocks, some of these, especially the ones that ran, like these top three, they got into the AI data center game. And they've been making money powering AI data centers or being part of that whole narrative. People recently were more willing to invest in AI, quantum computing type stocks than they were Bitcoin type assets. So the AI assets overall did a lot better. But with that being said, let's take a look at, I just want to show you this for comparison. Again, we have to alter our perspective moving forward. But for comparison, Mara, this was the number one Bitcoin mining stock by market cap. It wasn't even close. Last cycle, from the top to the bottom, Mara was the number one Bitcoin mining stock. Something I want to show you is that after Bitcoin's top, Bitcoin is in the background. Once Bitcoin bottomed, Mara was overall done bottoming. Now, I say overall because during the COVID flush, it still went a little bit lower. All right, we can't ignore that. Now, if you would have bought Mara here at $1.50, you would still be more than happy. It would suck to see it go down here. But again, I preach on my channel, if you like a stock here, you should love it here. And if you don't love a stock when it goes lower than like this, then I think you shouldn't have bought in the first place. So you do have to have conviction and enough research to believe in those convictions. Those are both my number one data center plays in my they're not miners anymore. Okay. Let me just finish this thought and I'll get to that. Bitcoin, bottom, Mara, bottom, nice and close together. So, the simple short of the long I could say is wait for Bitcoin to bottom. And I just went through a number of indicators to show you, where is Bitcoin bottoming? Watch for that to happen. Now, as we get into IREN, you do bring up a good point about, I don't consider these mining stocks anymore. All right, that's legit. Then let me ask you this. What would be the number one overall stock or crypto or sector that you would compare this to? Would you track this with NVIDIA, with Google, with Microsoft, with software companies? There's been a lot on Twitter recently about how crypto and software companies being highly correlative in their charts. Which one of those would you say we have a high degree of correlation with? I'm curious as to what your answer is. Now, we can run through a number of these. One of the first that comes to my mind is Google. And overall, I dare say Google, I think, is probably a lot of people's NBIS. Good question. All right, crypto golfer, I'm going to look at your comments after doing this. Google, for a lot of intents purposes, might be the number one AI stock in a lot of people's minds. I think there's a high correlation between Google and some of these mining stocks. So you might just watch Google and say, is Google topish? Is it going to bottom? I'm going to wait for Google to bottom, and then we'll go from there. So, that's one perspective. You could track the mining stocks with Bitcoin. And I'm curious, I don't know this answer. I need to research this. What percentage of IRIN, Cypher are even in the Bitcoin mining stock game anymore anyways? I know Mara is number one. So when Bitcoin runs again, Mara, stuff like Mara Hive should do well. But is IRIN completely an AI stock? Are they 10% Bitcoin? I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments below. But, Google, I think, is highly correlative, or probably the most correlative when I think of, IRIN and Cypher. And you can see Google, my God, this thing went on a tear. It went on a tear. And we know it's detached from its moving averages. It's due for a little bit of a pullback. I love Google. Any of you long-term subscribers, you heard me say that IRIN holds 0 Bitcoin. Interesting. That's funny. They even listed as a Bitcoin mining stock company still, at least on that website. So Google, I like this one a lot down here. Again, we talk about the moving averages, how rare it is for companies to be down here. And as far as AI, there's a lawsuit down here. Might they split up Google? Anyone with half a brain knew that wasn't going to happen. But one of the things I really loved about Google, as far as all the mag stocks, I thought this one had the most potential upside out of the Mag 7, and it had one of the lowest PE ratios. At least it did. And then it just friggin' took off like a rocket. But any of you who have been with me here for a while, we remember when Google was under 2 trillion market cap. So I would say, my 2 cents, compare IRIN to NVIDIA, to Google. Palantir, Palantir is a more speculative AI stock. I think it's probably the most risk on AI stock out there, as far as popular ones outside the mags, that's going to be more affected by volatility. So I think, something like Palantir is not going to be as safe. And so, when Palantir is done falling, I think then it would be a good time to maybe re-enter IRIN, Cypher. But yeah, we are in a down move for sure. I would be watching those other major AI stocks. And if Google, Palantir, others look like they're bottoming, cool. But right now, I don't believe they are bottoming. We'll see about that. MACD, very negative. Let's go to Google. This just flipped over from a very high level. So this has some downside to go. NVIDIA, pretty negative. Is it kind of rounding out right there? We'll see. So, that's what I'd be looking at. If you're not going to compare to Bitcoin, maybe compare to some of the other major AI plays. IRIN never had any Bitcoins as they used to mine it, and they sell it. They never hodl. Oh, interesting. They always sold all their Bitcoin as soon as they mined it. Okay, nice. Thank you, guys. I like how you both said the same answer. You probably Googled the same thing, but I appreciate it. I do the same stuff. If I have a question, I just Google it. But yeah, you crypto golfer, you want to take a look at Nebius and CoreWeave. Let's get into that. Nebius. Nebius. I assume this is the one. Have I ever looked at Nebius? All right, what do we got here? Nebius Group, NV, $24 billion market cap. Earnings, a bit negative going lower. Um, Income statement, it's been dropping. More financials. Not really giving me too much here. Interesting. Usually there's more. Um, I'm curious what Market Watch might say. I mean, this is a buy signal. Yeah, this one was very toppish recently. I'm going to say the same thing as I said about um, some of the other stocks recently. There's a lot of things that look negative, and after these recent run-ups, um, I mean, 200 days, almost a 6x, very toppish MACD coming down. You know, I'm just going to say be careful. But if you want to take a look at some discount levels, you can wait for the MACD to start curling up for more of a base. Look at that. It's getting a nice bounce at the 50 and the 236 pullback. So, NBIS is most similar to IREN. Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what I try to look for, crypto golfer? Good find, by the way. What I try to look for is, are there any stocks or sectors, again, that kind of front run it, that give us a peek into what to expect, or ones that they're most similar to. So, for .dev, maybe, crypto golfers giving you the play here. Wait for NBIS to, show more of a bottom and then go in. I did want to look at Cypher, by the way. Yeah, Cypher in that downward channel, really nothing new. It's still at its former all-time high. But yeah, I mean, we see this a lot around a lot of charts. So yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting on some of these. CoreWeave, that's one I have not looked at in a while. Was CoreWeave the one where there was like some hack or something last year and the stock fell by a bunch? And then, right here, was that it? November last, I could be wrong. Let's take a look at the daily. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know a lot about CoreWeave. 45 billion. Overall, this MACD trend was very low. Now it looks like it's reversing. So once it puts in a base, I don't hate it here, to be honest. If this is something you really like, what do I want to do here? Let's do that. Came down to its golden pocket, tagged it very nicely. Little rejection off that recently new. Look at this. God, you got to love when we've seen this before when stuff hits its 200, like its brand new moving average. It's like brand new and it just gets rejected by it. So that 200 is kind of beastly, almost a little head and shoulders here. So could it come down to the 618 here again? Maybe. No, you're thinking of CrowdStrike. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're right. CrowdStrike. How did you know? You read my mind, dude. Where was that CrowdStrike? I want to say it was earlier. Was it here? Because I've been, at this channel for a bit. I want to say maybe it's here. And I kind of remember saying like, hey, it's not a bad time to buy. And, for a bit it was. And then it's fallen off again. That MACD is very low right now. You can look at the moving averages. It's getting rejected by, here, July 24, got down to the 200. Back here, I mean, it really scaled down. Yeah, is it going to get near the 50 month again? The monthly looks very bad. I mean, isn't this the story for a lot of tech stocks that we really liked, that the MACDs are just starting to flip? So Is this the year, this recession year, where we're going to see some stuff just curl over? Um, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, good job reading my mind, by the way. I'm impressed. Yeah, CrowdStrike was exactly what I was thinking of. Microsoft, I talked about this before. And guys, I got to say, Microsoft, it's tagged this 50-month moving average before. If we are in truly sort of a recessionary environment, or something similar to dot-com bubble, dot-com bubble, after it popped, Microsoft went down to the 100-month. GFC, it went down to the 200. If you would have bought Microsoft around the 100-month moving average, let's just say you aped in right there, you would be making an average of 100% gains over the next 2 decades. That is a return I would not miss out on. I'm not saying Microsoft goes down here, but if it does, and again, I've talked about how you look for confirmation on different indicators, different moving averages. If Microsoft gets to 300, 200, those are areas where I will be looking for a second job and extra income to just let my money print for the next 2 decades. NFA, not financial advice, but I'm just saying, Microsoft, considered by many for a long time, best stock in the world. Would you have to see some sideways action for a decade? Very possible. But again, I like the stock enough that, we've seen this before. Run up, lost decade. Run up, maybe lost decade. Okay. Do you have the cojones to get in there? There's a cybersecurity play that got hacked. Oh, the irony. Yeah. You know, Gosh, I do love that though. It's cybersecurity that got hacked. Hopefully they learn from it. But yeah, I remember looking at that one, or Boeing. I remember looking at Boeing when the doors and everything were falling off, and being like, is this a local bottom? Yeah, right here. That was a local bottom. If you would have bought the bad news on Boeing, you'd be doing pretty good. It was all the way down here. You see this nice trend line. If Boeing continues to do bad, I don't like airline stocks overall, I must say. They kind of suck. But yeah, if you do like Boeing, could it get back down to the 130s? We'll see. But there's some sort of resistance level. Let's get back to crypto. I want to talk about Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance. Let's see. This is interesting. I didn't even mean to look at this on the monthly, but I'm glad I did. Last cycle, we saw tops flirting with the 50. This cycle, we're seeing tops, flirting with the 100. Are we going to see Bitcoin dominance come up here again? There's some increasing weakness I've talked about before. The stochastic RSI and the MACD direction. It is very bottomed out. One of the things, and there's nothing to say this has to happen again, but Bitcoin dominance had a double bottom with the monthly stochastic. And I'm curious about that. We got one bottom. Are we going to get a little bit of a spike? Maybe come back up here again. And then on the second turnover, come down. After that initial spike was done, and just again, this is correlative. Do not take anything serious from this. 487 days from the bottom of that first spike. And I'm going to where alt season was. 240. So let's go 240 to 500. Let's just take an average. 240. June of this year, could you see an alt season in June? I can't. Let's go to 500. Might we see an alt season, sometime next year? Maybe, on the pump. Again, that's purely correlative. There's nothing serious about that analysis whatsoever. But yeah, Bitcoin dominance, it's very interesting right now. With all this bad news, look at this thing just coiling in here. What does the MACD show us? I know the trend is overall down, and that's still, you can see this here. Look at all that bearish divergence, if we want to call it that. But yeah, it looks like it kind of wants to maybe roll over more. So yeah, that's just interesting to me. Total 3, hit our golden pocket, hit the 200 week moving average. This is very negative right now. And in the past, one of the things I looked at is, where did total 3 bottom compared to the cycle before? It topped around the former top. How about this cycle? Is it going to do the same? Is it going to get to the 382? Again, we don't have confirmation of a bottom, but it is, possibly settling. For some of these altcoins, I do think we have to watch, the Bitcoin market, once Bitcoin bottoms, maybe these altcoins have truly put in a bottom. This is a nice little range to hold here. But if it gets down lower, I like that 382. If it breaks this, that's a lot of good support here. But we'll see. We just recently had a major move down. So I'm of the mindset that maybe we chop for a little bit. As I showed you in the midterm year. After the classic midterm year, we're kind of due for a little bit of bullishness. A lot of bear markets, even on the way down, you'll see crazy pumps, dead cat bounces, all that. Good enough to suck people in. I think we're experiencing a little bit of bearishness. And again, I'm looking for some major discounts on some of my favorite stocks in crypto. I think Microsoft is at a good area right now. Again, we don't have the confirmation yet, but there's some plays, I think long-term plays starting to open the door for us. And now I'm waiting, stacking cash, waiting to pounce on some of these. Ethereum, Bitcoin, again, we talk about the money flow cycle. Here's the MACD curling up. Here's the MACD curling down. All we really need is a higher low. And in my opinion, this is very bottomed out. And we are in phase 2. Let me go back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the video. We are in phase 2. And phases can run together, by the way. Phase 1 and 2 can run together for a long time. And phase 3 sometimes starts to go before the top, sometimes goes after Bitcoin tops. But we have never had alt season until Bitcoin has topped for the cycle. Once it is done topping, and it's too expensive to keep buying, that is when we finish this rotation. And again, we did not complete our money flow cycle this time around. In the past, when we've completed that money flow cycle, you see what happens, whether V-shaped recovery over time. This bottom, by the way, with the United States Central Bank balance sheet, it bottomed with quantitative tightening. Here, it bottomed before QE started. So, whether it's QE or rate cuts or a combination of a number of things, banks being deregulated and getting more into the crypto space, we'll see. But there are some comparisons to be made with last cycle to this cycle. And to me, this shows that the market, even before QT bottom, was very risk on. Yes, we're seeing some correction with that, but I think macro-wise, the next time Ethereum Bitcoin pairing is getting up above this 0.5 level, around 25%, we're going to see some crazy moves in the altcoin market. I think we got teased a little. It's a great way to flush retail out. I'm not leaving. I'm still looking at discounts on some of my favorite crypto plays. But right now it is a moment of patience for me. Let's see. Let's keep going. Total 3 excluding stables minus others. Others is everything outside the top 10 divided by Bitcoin. So if you're like, what is all that? What that means is total 3. We're taking out these excluding stables. So no Tether, no USDC. We're taking a look at the top large caps, XRP, Binance, Solana, Tron, Doge, Bitcoin Cash, minus others, everything outside the top 10. So Bitcoin Cash, Flip, Cardano. This is coming down. I'm waiting for this 236 area. We are in a massive wedge. And, I do wonder, are we going to kind of play around in here until, this wedge comes to a completion? You can see where these bottoms and tops line up. Later this year, are we going to just coil until sometime later this year and then hopefully pop up again? We'll see. But again, that does line up with classic midterm years. Maybe as soon as midterms are done, boom, we take off. And, I could see something like that happening. Others, everything outside the top 10. hitting some important resistance again, the 50. What's it going to do from here? We'll see. But overall, the trend is not broken in any sort of way. Tether dominance, this is one that, man, this showed us the way earlier, just when it took off. And this thing is bullish right now. Are we bearish at all? Let's take a look at MACD. Done being bullish. This is still overall macro positive. It's at the 786. But in the past, this has ripped up higher. Are we near, a topping territory? Let's see. Adios, crypto golfer. Have a good one, dude. Why am I buffering? Crypto golfer, have a good day. I don't know if that didn't come through well as buffering there for some reason. But yeah, as far as tether dominance, watch out for that. Ethereum, this one, let's put it back on a log. One of the things I'm looking for again is Ethereum to come down to and settle more around this 382, 1700. Might it tag somewhere here around the 236? Maybe. But yeah, are we getting any indication that Ethereum is done? Not really. Not yet. So best case, maybe a little bit lower to go, and that's it. Worst case, maybe it comes down lower. Let's take a look at some of our favorite altcoins. I like Chainlink. It sucks right now, but I do like this as an alt. You see all these head and shoulders. This thing loves head and shoulders. It's playing with that 236. If you like Chainlink, this might be an area to consider. The MACD is very, very low, but I don't mind maybe dollar cost averaging a little Chainlink here, even though I think this can definitely go lower. Something interesting that I'm just noticing right now, when Bitcoin truly bottomed out, it was later on, and Chainlink was already done bottoming, so if we experience, a flush to 50Ks, is Chainlink going to go a little bit lower? Right here, I would not miss Chainlink in this area. I like Chainlink a lot. You can call me a Chainlink shell. I'm not telling you to like it. From the research I've done, I like it. I think it has high potential. So I like this as one of my favorite large caps. Let's take a look at some of the crappy small caps. Fetch, it did bottom with Bitcoin. But again, some of these altcoins bottomed even, not too much, kind of in line with Bitcoin. So, here's a question. Is Bitcoin done bottoming? I don't think so. But when it is, where are some of these altcoins, some of our favorite altcoins going to be? I don't mind taking a stab at that. Jasmy, we know where Bitcoin bottomed right over here. Bitcoin had to be done truly bottoming. But yeah, Jasmy, oh my God, so many fibs here. My God. Let's do that. Low to high. I like this more. It's at 786 support. Again, I'm willing to be more confident when Bitcoin's done. District DNT, a useless garbage altcoin. Project's dead, but this thing randomly pumps at times. And so when this one is done dumping, this is a good indication for me. When a crappy altcoin that is no longer worth anything, it's pumped before, even regardless of that. When this one is done bottoming or starting to flip up, macro wise, that showed us kind of close to where the bottom's been in. This was March 2020. Let's see, December 22. So there's a bottom there. Had a little pump there. And now it's just falling lower. So again, once this one starts to form a base, there's many altcoins like this that show me, okay, people still put money in them, but they're absolutely useless. Any questions out there or comments before I go? I might get into some Bitcoin mining stocks or other altcoins just for fun, ones we haven't looked at in a while. If you have any requests or comments, please put them below. And then, like I said, I'll take a look at some things here, but I'll give you guys a second. Um, while you guys, while I wait for your comments, just going to take a quick restroom break. Be right back in a minute. All right, I am back. I've been drinking a lot more water lately, trying to be good and hydrated. All right, no new comments, so I'll just go through some random altcoins here. And yeah, hope y'all are doing well. That you got some fun things going on this weekend. It's kind of a weird time. I'm a sports guy. It's kind of a weird time right now. Like I'm waiting for some sports kick up, like college basketball, starting to pay more attention to that. Because we have March Madness. I always do a March Madness pool with my family and friends. $20, winner takes all. And the people who barely pay attention always win it, which is infuriating because I do my research. I'm all proud. It's probably how some of us feel about this crypto stuff. Is that we do research on this and a person, who doesn't know crap randomly buys and becomes rich. It be like that sometimes. As far as XRP, 786 support, 200, big support right here. XRP breaks at 200, Bitcoin breaks at 200. Where's XRP going to go? I like XRP as a top altcoin. I am being patient on an XRP. Let's take a look at, could that MACD be starting to form a base? I mean, it's as low as it's been. I kind of compare it to right here for last cycle. Maybe it has more of a drop. But again, some of these alts, I'm going to wait because if you buy a falling knife, you don't have total confirmation, that Bitcoin's done. Bitcoin bottomed right here. XRP had some pumps in between that. You could catch a falling knife, so just be careful. Let's get into Solana. Where's Solana? We have not that was the wrong one. We have not looked at Solana in a while. It's at its macro golden pocket. So let's take a look at this. I had to put it right there on what the hell is going on. Here we go. I'll do that. What do we have here? They put an update right where my fib was. All right, we're going to go from that high to low. Solana right at its golden pocket, got through its 200. Is this one done? To me, it doesn't look like it's done. And there are a lot of charts during riskier times that kind of have, this sort of pattern where it comes up, ranges, and then comes back down. But yeah, look, by the way, we're about to get our first death cross, 50 under the 100. Are we going to get 50 under the 200? And by the time the 50's under the 200, maybe Solana's going to be at like $30. I like Solana. But yeah, I don't think it's the time to be buying right now. For some of these altcoins, Cardano, let's do this one. Again, if you have any comments or altcoins or cryptos or stocks you like to look at, let me know. Cardano, I don't mind this. It's right near where its last cycle lows were. Um, do we have confirmation? Not quite, but the MACD's starting to curl up. Um, Cardano might be worth a little bit of a play here, maybe. This channel got broken. We talked about this for coin. Do you guys see what's going on here? We may have a megaphone pattern going on. And remember what I said about coin with the megaphone patterns? Wherever they break, they can do this sort of thing on whichever side. So is Cardano going to come down to, what would that be, like 6 cents or something again? I don't know. But just something, we'll keep it up there, see how it plays out. Binance don't care, Tron don't care, Doge. Let's take a look at Doge. I know I have some Doge fans out there. Um, as far as the average person, when they hear about an altcoin or crypto, what do they think of? They think of Bitcoin, Ethereum. I feel like Doge is going to probably be the other one. They're like, oh yeah, Doge is a crypto. So it's going to attract that retail attention. But yeah, no two ways about it. Doge broken down right now. If it Doge kind of like what was that, Chainlink? If it goes lower than the 236, do we have confirmation? Not quite, but it is looking a little bit bottomish. Here when the MACD flipped up, it was like one more false pump and then it truly bottomed. Are we going to get that? Doge to around 5 cents again. But yeah, this one, we talked about this in 2017. Let me just show you. XRP was the crypto. Okay. You guys will know I talked about this. And in 2021, you can use whatever lawsuit excuse you want. XRP, Bitcoin Cash, others only got to the 786 or between the golden pocket and the 786. All right, cool. Got back up to former all-time high, and that's it. All right. Doge was my leading candidate, and you guys know this who have been watching me for a while. On this cycle, maybe it only gets back up to its 786. Now, you've also heard me say the money flow cycle is not done yet. I believe that. So if we do get another pump, could Doge get back up here, get up here again? Maybe. But yeah, I think for any of these altcoins, if they hit their 786 retrace, it is an area considering taking profits, or at least, this is part of what I do. I look at taking a return on my initial investment and then playing with house money. If Bitcoin looks very toppish and done, I'm looking at taking it all out. If not, I might, again, take my return on initial investment, play with house money, and see if, withdraw, scale out at different levels. Doge, yeah, it got right to that 42 cent level, just like we talked about. So sucks to see. Let's go to AVAX. I know some of you guys like AVAX. Look at it. Broke under its descending channel. I laugh because how much it hurts. Is it going to hold this support? Do you like AVAX enough to buy it down here? Man, that looks like absolute garbage. Again, these are very high risk plays. I would not be touching anything until I truly believe Bitcoin is done bottoming. But, do you like AVAX? Have you done enough research to say, hey, this warrants a buy right here? Yeah, I'm not touching any of this stuff until I truly believe Bitcoin is bottom. And I think, again, we might see a little bit of a pump come back into the market for a month or two, trap some people back in, and then, truly get the bottom sometime after that. What am I looking for? RSI, it's very bottomed out, but it's not always, super correlative. Let's take a look at SWE. Which one do we do? Do we do this one? I thought AVAX was solid. I kind of thought it was solid too. But this is the story of every crypto cycle. G. Kanelski, Polish. I have a lot of Polish friends. All their names end in ski. Every alt season, here's the thing to be careful on with alts, or every cycle. when you do research on alts, be careful, because if you see nothing but good, positive things about it, and it's too good to be true, it probably is. So I truly try the weight of the pros and cons and say, what am I expecting from these alts? I think alts, there's an inherent quality about altcoins that makes us greedy about them. Because what's the reason to buy altcoins? To look for some massive returns, more than a Bitcoin, um, and more than an Ethereum. And if you get the right ones, great. But that's why on my channel I'm like, it's okay to take a 2x, a 5x, a 10x. When you say it's okay to take a 10x, how greedy a space is. And Wall Street, the algorithms, they're going to find a way to bleed out all the people with gambling addictions and ADHD, OCD addictions with this crypto stuff. So, patience, research can really play a big part in some of this stuff. If you like AVAX, I'm curious, G. Kanelski, has any of your opinion changed on AVAX? Yes or no? If not, AVAX doesn't look bad as far as discount value. Its chart looks bad, but, has through all your research and things you like about AVAX, if none of that has changed, here's a discount value for you. If none of that's changed, here's a discount value for you at 420. So something to consider. Sometimes getting in at these lows, you got to believe in something when few others do. It's a risky game to play. Its chart is down here for a reason, and there are ways to offset risk. Waiting for Bitcoin to truly bottom, and then maybe you get within a better, closer range. Could this be the bottom? I don't know. AVAX, this was the Bitcoin bottom, and we see AVAX still went a little lower. So again, if you believe Bitcoin is done bottoming, you could catch a low, you could dollar cost average, scale in. If it hits $4, I might not be able to look away from that. Ondo is an altcoin we looked at. Oh, Jesus. My God. Yeah. It's so sad. Ondo is one of those, it's like, hey, that's one that doesn't look bad. Oh, boy. This was December 2024. I laughed because of the pain. I bought a little Ondo, all right? Did not do well on it. I saw something on Twitter about optimism. Yeah, you gotta laugh. Here I am charting Fibonacci's, and they're like, hey, this fib. Oh, I got the paint thing on. Let me delete that. Let's go to this. We have to be able to select. It hits some of those fib targets. This is what altcoins do. High to low, it'll hit some of these fib targets, 1618, 2618, and then they just die. So, again, wait for Bitcoin to bottom. Where's the bottom for Ondo? I don't know, but guys, I've seen this in the last two cycles. When charts do this, be freaking careful. If you're like, hey, this is the lowest it's ever been, why not? I'll buy. It can go lower and lower and lower. Wait for Bitcoin to bottom. And do your research. I do not like charts like this, so I am staying away from an optimism. I am pessimistic about optimism. Dad joke, I'm sorry. What other altcoins? And then I'll go over to some Bitcoin mining stocks. I just like looking at altcoins like this. I don't know about you guys, but Litecoin. Remember some of the people this cycle on Twitter saying, Litecoin's going to go to 400 again, or it's going to break out, it's in this giant pattern. Litecoin sucked last cycle. Look at this. This is this cycle in a nutshell so far. A lot of altcoins only got back up to its 618, its golden pocket, and then they fell down. A lot of the good ones, quote unquote. So, again, we got our 4-year cycle top. We did not get our money flow cycle top. I still believe this. Okay. There's a lot of indications to say we did not get our money flow cycle top. Let's go back to that, by the way. When is our money flow cycle top? Well, that's when Bitcoin dominance, when we get that massive rotation. Okay. We have not had that. We have not had that. Recently at a peak, and it may peak again or go up a little higher, but we have not had that massive rotation. Quantitative tightening only just recently ended. These things take time. Supposedly the new Fed chair is going to be more pro rate cut. Again, these things take time, or whatever other market factors are out there. Maybe the market needs a little bit of a reset, some of these stocks to bottom out. There's fears of Iran war that'll probably negatively affect the markets, I would guess. Classic midterm year stuff. So I'm waiting for some of these things to be done playing out. But, our money flow cycle, it's not come to a completion yet. And we can see that on a number of these charts. I mean, Ethereum Bitcoin pairing. When our money flow cycle is truly peaking out, I mean, to me, that's not a classic money flow cycle. It's bullish in this direction. You can take a look at it maybe for comparison's sake somewhere right here. Whether or not that's going to be more drawn out, we'll see. But yeah, our money flow cycle is not complete yet. And that's why some of these, altcoin pumps underperformed for the most part for a lot of people. So yeah, it sucks. What did do well was some of our Bitcoin mining stocks. We took a look at Iran. Let's take a look at Wolf. Let's see. TeraWolf. Yeah, it was at that 786 resistance before. 1 second. All right. Got a text. I just wanted to read it. TeraWolf, the number 2 mining stock. Man, what's going on with this guy? I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with it. This 786 has been heavy resistance. It's challenging it. Is it going to break through? Is this thing going to pull a Hut 8 mining core like it did when the Google partnership was announced? So, right now, I mean, I like how this is looking. I'm looking for this to possibly break up. But Wolf is kind of in a different space than some of these other mining stocks, which have really rolled over. Hut, let's go to that one. Just keep this chart in the back of your mind. And then we go to Hut. Here we go. It broke out of its 786, the ascending channel, went to the 888. Is it still going to continue bullish? We'll see. Let's see. Some of this stuff, though, it looks kind of top-ish. Doesn't mean it can't have more pumps in there, but with the way some other parts of the market are going, I'm not in the mood for buying some of this stuff at a premium, especially that's more speculative. I've been getting some notifications on my phone about Mara, and curious about this one because this is Marathon Digital Holdings holds the most Bitcoin outside of MicroStrategy. All right, we see where Mara's at. Let's go to, that MACD monthly does not look good. Let's add on our moving averages. Yeah, our moving averages are pretty nice resistance. Look at that. That 100-month moving average. My God, that called the tops every time. And Mara's just coming back down again. Bitcoin bottomed, let's see, this last cycle. Yeah, right in line with Mara. When Bitcoin was done, Mara was done. So high correlation there. This was the COVID bottom. This is closer to where Bitcoin bottomed in the cycle before. You don't have to take my word for it. We can just overlay. There's where the Bitcoin bottom was. Mara still had another little bit further down to go. These bottoms coincided. So again, I like Mara. Are we going to get something like this? If by the time Mara bottoms, It's somewhere down here in $3 range. So be it. I'm not going to miss out on those prices, even if it goes lower. I do believe Bitcoin will have its day, even though it is not right now. I do believe we will one day see Bitcoin get to those upper pi cycle areas. As bad as things are right now, and again, we've taken a look at these on the monthly. Bitcoin Hunter, 54K, the 100-month moving average. As bad as things are right now, I believe Bitcoin will have its day again. Pi cycle, let's finish on this. Pi cycle bottom indicator. We haven't had this cross yet. Is this better on the weekly or the monthly? It still works. On the weekly, you see where those moving averages cross. We have not had the pi cycle bottom yet. Now it's getting kind of close. Okay. You can see how quick this is turning down. And again, it's not always going to be in line with the very bottom, but pretty dang close both times. And again, for a lot of intents and purposes, this was the bottom. But then we had a black swan event at the bottom, and it took us lower. Bubble risk indicator. I like this one. Here's our bubble risk indicator. And again, black swan at the bottom with the FTX thing. So bubble risk indicator in the dark blue area. I would not be surprised to see somewhere in the low 50Ks. Again, I'm not trying to say Bitcoin will exactly bottom at 51,342. I'm not saying anything like that, but do we have a high degree of confidence of, a range it can bottom at, or some indicators to help us confirm that, that we're within 5-10% of that bottom? That's a game I'll play. But I'm not doing leverage trading or anything like that. So if you guys are, as far as these bubble risk indicator tops, you can see we really didn't have anything. And I believe, with all the QE that came in last time, the market's resetting again, the money flow cycle. Let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Just the money flow cycle. Yet again, we'll go back to this. The 4-year cycle top, the money flow did not. Okay. The 4-year cycle and money flow, we're looking at the green here in 2017. They went together. In 2021, they did not. Money flow cycle peaked here. 4-year cycle is here. Okay. The cycle top was here. Right now, again, the bubble risk, that was here. Okay. The 4-year cycle top was here. 4-year cycle top was here. Okay. The bubble risk, the money flow cycle, we have not had that yet. So is that going to be in the form of a mid-cycle top after the bottom is truly in? Is it going to be in the form of a pump into the halving? A pump into the halving? That was technically the cycle top. That remains to be seen. But I think that's kind of my base case right now. Pump into the halving or mid-cycle top. And if you're like, hey, when's the next halving? How long do we have to wait? The next halving is early 2028. So is 2027 going to be the year where we see money flow cycle? Could be, but I do think we still have a little bit further down to go. Pi cycle. Let's take a look at the pi cycle indicator. This is low and high. When Bitcoin is truly bubbly, you see it hits that pi cycle area. The last time we even touched the pi cycle was the top going into the halving. Okay, so again, I've talked about how I believe the money flow cycle is going to be more out here. That kind of lines up with what we saw last time. So, I'm just planning ahead, not saying it has to be there. Maybe it's going to be after the halving. I don't know. But yeah, that pi cycle top right there, right at 200K. Right at 200K. Yes, it gets above it. I don't believe the pi cycle will be triggered again. But 200K, I think that lines up for a lot of reasons. High to low. Let's do this. 200K. That's the 2618, the 3618 right in there. I would not be surprised to see Bitcoin get to one of those levels. I'm just saying, these are some of the things I'm willing to be patient for. Um, if you're looking for like, hey, I think Bitcoin's bottomed, what could support that? RSI is very oversold. The what was it? The bull market risk indicator is very low. We've had Bitcoin bottom before in line with former tops. Are we going to get that again? A bottom in line with former tops. I'll go back to the log scale though for reference. On log scale, we get more of a horizontal stretch over time. Within a log regression, there's more verticality earlier on and it becomes more horizontal later on. Again, I think the correction that needs to be made for this log regression, the tops need to flatten out more. The bottom's pretty good right now. But again, these bottoms show somewhere around the 50Ks, low 50Ks, high 40Ks, maybe. If we get anywhere in the 50K area, and Bitcoin did technically touch there recently, it was like the high 50Ks. So what is this? It was, 59.9. So barely got into the 50Ks, got bought up. Again, I'm not saying we're going straight down. I would not be surprised to see something like this. Okay. Post midterm year uncertainty, midterm election uncertainty. That's when these assets do pretty well. So those are things I'm looking for. Still in the 50K areas. But yeah, any other thoughts or comments before I wrap this up? Give you guys a second. Doesn't look like it. All good. Yeah, good live stream today. CryptoGolfer.dev. Appreciate you guys being here. Hope everyone's doing well. Continue to be patient. Our time will come. And for these market lows, have a plan. Have a plan. And, pick some indicators you really like. Things will come back. Things will come back. So yeah, I think we've talked about everything today. Nothing really going on as far as Bitcoin price is concerned. I'm going to keep watching the monthly and the weeklies. That is what I'm going to do. Any other indicators I want to take a look at? Somebody talked about Gaussian channel before. We could see where some of those bottoms are. Yeah, that's in the mid 40s. We talked about before how when the weekly Gaussian channel turns red, very quickly after we have the bottom. When it turns red, very quickly after. Yes, this was the bottom, but buying here, you'd be totally fine. 19K, 16K, this isn't red yet. That's something I'm looking for. Any other indicators I forgot to mention? I think Larson line was one. Yeah, this is an interesting one. When the Larson line has crossed and turned blue, that's been near local bottoms in the past. Maybe I need to do an indicator special. When it's crossed, that wasn't the very bottom. After it turned blue, that was very close. Look where the Larson line is at right now, guys. It is getting very close. Are we going to get a bottom by May? That is that's been a popular theory out there. That's one I'm willing to buy into, just at the rate of which things are going down right now. Are we going to get a bottom by May where we get those low 50K areas, kind of freak people out, make them think the bubble's done, and then boom, we get that mid-cycle top, with the midterm year, and the midterm year just gets all its negativity out of the way sooner than later. Yeah, the Larson line, when this turned blue, we're getting close to that. So there's a lot of indicators that agree with each other that there's still a little bit of negativity to go. Um, again, Bitcoin Hunter, I'm watching this one like a hawk. Um, just it's so close, so close. I don't even care, by the way, if Bitcoin hits 48K. When we're here, I am starting some of my plays at the very next sign of any confirmation. I'm willing to look at my leading indicators when Bitcoin's here and start entering in. And even if things go a little bit lower, I am heavily scaling in those areas. That's what I'm looking at. Any other indicators that I should take a look at? Another one I really like, the reverse Cutler's RSI. This has been pretty good about calling that bottom. We have the pi cycle bottom. We have a number of very good indicators. The Larson line's about to flip, pi cycle. It looks like there's another flush. Are we going to get that out of the way sooner than later? We'll see. But yeah, there's some things to say that, we are very oversold right now. Does it mean we're done? Not 100%, but, this has been a good indicator in the past. Again, doesn't mean we're done. But, even the 200-week moving average, it's a hard area to argue with. So, all right, I'll call it there. Guys, thank you so much for watching, being here. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.